Hi there, it's Lisa. I am doing a load page today for one of the prompts that we had this month, where we were looking at how our dreams from childhood had become a reality or how they had influenced our life. And when I was a child, one of the things that I did a lot was draw house plans. And that may seem a little odd, but I grew up in a family business involved in the home building industry. And so a lot of times we went to houses when they were under construction. People would bring their plans with them and they were coming in picking out things for their home. And that always interested me. I don't have any of those old drawings. I drew them on the back of sales tickets, and I don't have any of those. But I do have this drawing from our current house, because I continue to draw house plans and I designed the house that we live in now. So I have, this was one of the working drawings from the architect. It wasn't the final version that we came up with. It's very close, but I wanted to save the real thing. So I cut this one up and I'm going to use it as the background for the page. I also found in my files some of my sketches or little drawings that I had done to get to this point. And this got changed quite a bit, but I have this as well to go on the layout, and a couple of pictures of the house in progress. I made a lot of photographs of our house while we were building it, because that was a big part of my dreams from an early age to get to a point where I could design and have my own home. So I've always wanted to scrap this, and this is a great opportunity to do that. I thought it would look good to use some wood toned things, so I have some wood toned letters. I have lots of wood veneer. I always have lots of wood veneer pieces. It's my favorite embellishment. I have this one from Twopeasinabucket called Home Sweet Home that I thought would be perfect for this page. And I have hearts and arrows and little chevrons and different things that I can put on here. So I'll just see what works well with it. Simple Stories Homespun Collection has a lot of these really cute little cards with houses and some sayings and things that I think are appropriate. I've got a lot of stuff to go on this page, so I'm going to have to do some weeding down and seeing what I want to use. I'm going to be putting this on a white background since the paper is semi-transparent. Kind of a vellum, I guess, is what architects use. And I'm using the 12 by 12 paper as a guide to mark where to cut this. And my plan was to cut it with a ruler, but what I found was that was just really hard to keep everything straight. Since I didn't have a good straight starting point to begin with, I'd cut this out with scissors. So I ended up just laying my white paper on this and cutting it with a craft knife. But that became a problem too. As you'll see later on, I had an edge that wasn't perfectly straight. If I had it to do over, I would lay a piece of 12 by 12 chipboard on top of it, and that would give me a better edge. I think I would have gotten a better result. But anyway, I have this, and the challenge now is it curls on the edges. So I've got to come up with some way to hold it down. I was thinking about making a paper frame to go over it, and eventually I landed on the idea of sewing it down. I don't know why I didn't think about that to begin with, because that's the best way to sort of hold something in place. For the time being, though, I'm kind of looking at how I'm going to arrange things. This was my original plan, to have the photos far over to the left and then kind of have the embellishment and stuff over on the right side, or excuse me, have the photos on the right and the embellishment on the left. But now I'm looking at maybe spreading the photos out across the page, since I had some area over there on the left that was a part of the house plan I just didn't really feel like I needed to see that much. Trying to get as much of the detail areas showing, and when there's big open room areas, I can cover those. So I'm trimming down this little house plan that I had drew. I have gobs of these, different versions, so I'm not ruining something that I only have one of. I have plenty of them, and I could have made a copy of it. I decided to go ahead and just use the original. Going through the homespun collection, looking for, mainly for the little cards. I like that heart paper, that's a possibility. But I'm mainly looking at these little tiny journaling cards. Several of them have sayings on them that I think work for the page about home and about sharing your home with the people you love and that kind of thing. And these make good embellishments. There was one there I liked, but it was just a little too busy. The one with the black background, that looks like something you might frame and put in a house, and I thought it was really appropriate. Alright, here's where I ran into problems. I needed to trim my paper down. It wasn't quite even. So I started trimming, and I ended up trimming more than 12. I ended up with it less than 12 inches. So I found some grid paper
designer paper, and I sewed it to that, and that worked really well. But because it was vellum, it kind of crawled a little bit with my sewing machine. So I ended up with one kind of little lump on the left there. It gets covered up. It's not a big deal, but I did have it adhered down, but maybe not quite enough. Now I'm looking for things to put to frame my different little journaling cards that I cut out. And I do have a frame there. That one packet of stuff is furniture. It was a Prima item, and I'm getting another Prima item out here. I decided not to use the furniture because I'm not really working on the ends or concentrating much on the design of the inside of the house so much on this layout. I do like the Prima wood card, and I'm considering using that on the bottom. Going through some trims, because this needs some color. It's starting to need something with some color, and I got a couple of red trims there that I like. That one, the plaid one, has a lot of the colors that we used in the house. But again, I'm really kind of more focused on the outside of the house. So I've got a little bit of a conflict here because I have so much I could say about this. I'm having to bring the scope down just a little bit. I went through the cards and I found one that had more diamond shapes, and that really goes with the features of my home. It doesn't show up much in the photos, but there are some diamond or windows turned on their end that look like diamond shapes. Alright, so now it's time to lay everything down and glue everything down, and it worked really well, except that I didn't leave enough room on the bottom for that card. I put my words too low, and I didn't have enough room to fit it. So I'm trying to cut it here. I'm using my Stampin' Up! Craft and Rubber scissors. These are a lot like, I think, the Tim Holtz scissors. I haven't used the Tim Holtz scissors, but I think it's the same principle. They're short blade, wide or long handles, so you get a lot of torque, and you can really cut through things. And this worked very well. I was afraid it would split all the pieces, but it worked really well. I'm just using the emery board to file it off because my sandpaper is way down in the basement. I didn't want to have to go down there and get it. And my plan was maybe to add a little color, at least to that one frame, but I decided to leave them natural because I thought that looked better with the house. I did print my journaling. I put a blue border or background behind that in Word when I printed it so that it wouldn't be entirely on white. I didn't have a cardstock that was quite light enough. And now we're down to a few of the little embellishments. And I spend a lot of time playing here, trying to decide what things I want to use. I have these stars from Twopeasinabucket, gray stars. They're subtle, but yet they give me something consistent. I really like this washi tape with these are triangle shapes, but they kind of go with that diamond sort of look. It was a little much. It looks okay, I think, here in the video, but in person it was just a little bit too bold. And I finally decided I had enough wood embellishments. I still need trim. And I had those red trims, and they were a little bold. It's my favorite yellow trim. I finally went to blue. And I had a couple of different blues, and I'm settling on this little blue rickrack to go underneath the journaling. Played with some of these buttons. Those buttons were from Basic Gray. I can't remember what collection they came from. I've had them a long time, and I'm glad I finally found a home where I could use all three of them, and they're a nice accent.
We have our page all done. It's kind of a weirdly busy page with this busy background to it. I think the biggest recommendation I can make is if you had some kind of background paper where you wanted different things to show up, is you just sort of have to move things around, and you can't really have a lot of pre-planned ideas about where stuff is going to go unless you've really studied the paper, because it's just hard to know until you start putting your pieces on there. But I can see all the room names and some of the details. I knew I wanted to leave a little bit of the stairs and things that had a little bit more detail to them. And then I was able to get in some of this old sketch that was probably done sometime in the early 90s. My embellishment here, I think one of the things that helps to keep a page like this together also when you have such a busy background is to create your three groupings. That triad of groupings will kind of bring stuff together, and having a lot of the wood color on here gave it a little bit of cohesiveness. So I did a lot of repetition with the buttons, with the stars, and then the framed elements are all a little bit different, but there's also this trim is repeated. So a lot of repetition, doing the groupings of three kind of help work with this really busy background. So I'm pleased with the page. It has some journaling on it, and it covers a lot of what led me from drawing little house plans on the backs of sales tickets to creating my house, but it doesn't cover nearly the amount of detail that I might put in someday. So this could be a page by itself, but I really see it being more of the beginning of a bigger album with pictures of the house and more about going to home shows and things that I did to prepare for that big dream. Because at one point in time, this was actually for several years, this was a huge focus of my life, and I wasn't scrapbooking back then. I was a little bit in the last couple of years before we built the house, and I did scrapbook a little bit about the house at the time, but I was only doing pages for the two of us. I wasn't doing pages for just me. So I really have never covered this topic, and it's an important topic in my life. So I may want to do some more with it, and I may have some more information too. I have some old journals from back in those days, and I might have something in there too, some insights about how I felt at the time. But I remember when I pulled these pictures out the other day, I could smell the new house smell, especially as I was looking at some of the other pictures you're not seeing here, the ones at the inside of the house when the cabinets were set and that kind of thing. People talk about new car smell, but houses have a smell to them too, and that's the smell. That's what I grew up with, and that's what's important to me. So a page can bring back all kinds of senses for you.
So enough rambling. Thank you so much for watching and for taking a trip down memory lane. This was 20 years ago, but I'm really glad that I still had these photos and could tell the story. So please check out my blog for more information and for my No Photo, No Problem ebook for situations where you don't have photos and you don't have the memorabilia that you want and how you can work around that. Thanks so much.